Hello, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be all about junk journaling. With the new year, I know a lot of people like to vision board, journal, manifest, so I thought this video would be timely and hopefully it'll be helpful. I started junk journaling back in September 2020 during the pandemic because I was looking for kind of a slower form creative outlet. This was my journal from the end of 2020 and 2021. I actually took a break from junk journaling in 2022 because I was focused on just regular journaling, but then I started again in 2023, so this was my journal from this year. A big inspiration for me to start junk journaling was actually another creator. Her name's Katy Bellotte. It's actually a funny story how I came across her content. She lives in New York as well, but she's a few years younger than me, and our styles aren't exactly the same, so I probably would have never organically come across her account. But what happened was it was the end of 2019. I was outside taking outfit photos with my tripod as usual, and Katy, who I didn't know at the time, was in the same area also taking outfit photos. So a few days later, I got tagged in a comment on Instagram on one of Katy's posts because the caption was like, shout out to the girl in the back with the tripod. And someone tagged me in the post and was like, hey, is this you? And I said, yes. And Katy was super nice. She posted on her story, hey, we found the tripod girl and look how cute her feed is. And she posted some screenshots of my feed, which was really nice of her because she's a much bigger creator than I am. But anyway, when I found her account in 2019, she had a lot of cool content around junk journaling, and I really liked the vibe of her journals. So it really inspired me to get started as well. Of course, I try and, put my own twist on things. But yeah, she was a big reason that I decided to start journaling. She doesn't really create journaling content anymore, but I will link some of her videos in this video description if you want to check it out and get some more inspiration. But all that's to say that there's no right or wrong way to junk journal. I had seen people journaling for years before I started, and it always seemed really fun, but it honestly felt intimidating. I felt like I didn't have the right handwriting or I needed to learn calligraphy in order to do it, and that's simply not true. And to be honest, I think the more that you make your journal your own, the better your spreads are going to turn out. So with that, let's get started. So first, what exactly is junk journaling? Junk journaling is essentially just a diary you keep that's more visual, and you can add in anything you want to it. So let's get started and talk about the supplies that you'll need. I don't like to buy a ton of what I would call new supplies, things that you can buy in a craft store, just because I think the more that you can kind of find on your own, the more unique your journal spreads are going to look. But there are a few things that you are going to have to buy new. So the first thing would be a journal. This is the journal brand that I've bought the last 2 years. When looking for a journal, you definitely want to find one that has thicker pages. This one says low transparency, so I know the pages aren't going to be too thin or flimsy, especially since you're going to be gluing a lot of stuff on top of things. You don't want them to be too lightweight. I think you also want to consider a journal that is flexible, that you can easily open so it doesn't feel restricting when you're trying to work in it. Another thing I like to buy new is this washi tape. This is a great thing to add to your spreads just to give it more of a pop of color. Another thing you'll want to buy new are pens and markers. I do typically just tend to write in black, but having these pens and markers is another great way to add pops of color to your spread. And then lastly, rubber cement. This is my preferred method to glue everything into my journal over, say, something like a glue stick. I just think it holds really well, especially if you're gluing in something thicker to your journal. So those are all what I consider new supplies. Next, we're going to talk about what I would call vintage supplies. So these are basically just vintage items that you can add to your journal to give it more of a retro feel. For these types of items, they do sell these pre-made packs. My dad and his girlfriend actually got me this for Christmas. They bought this in a store somewhere, but they do sell these on Etsy as well. This one was $10 and has a bunch of really cool stuff in it. So this is a great option. Personally, I do like to curate my own things, so these are a few items that I get to give my journal a vintage touch. The first would be old book pages. There's a store in New York City called The Strand where they have carts of used books outside. So I'll usually buy one or two for like $1 or $2 a piece, and that'll give me tons of book pages that I can use. So that's a really great value. Next would be vintage postcards. I do collect postcards for the image on the front, but in this case, I'm specifically looking for blank postcards that I can write on the back of. And I look for postcards with different colors, fonts, so depending on the vibe of each spread. I also look for vintage photos. In this case, I'm looking specifically for images of cars, planes, cities like New York City or cities that I might visit. I also look for images of people, but where they are blurry or out of focus so you can tell it's a person, but the actual person is not super prominent. I also look for vintage envelopes, stamps, slides, really just anything that I can write on, and that's going to add more of a vintage touch to my journals. The next type of item is what I would call found supplies. So these are basically just things that you come across in your everyday life that you can salvage and put into your journal. So some examples of this would be envelopes. It was just Christmas and my birthday, so I got a lot of cards. So I saved some of the envelopes so that I can write on the back of them. Another idea would be these paper bags that I get in stores sometimes if you buy something small like a card. A lot of them have these really cute prints, so I'll always save them and add them to my journal as well. Also, these postcards in New York, especially, a lot of restaurants and bars give you these when they give you your bill. So these are also great to save either for the front if they have something cute or the back, which are blank that you can write on. Also, any type of stickers, cards, paper, again, really just anything that you find around that you can save and throw into your journal. Now, the last type of supply is what I would call personal supplies. So these are things that you just collect through your journal through life that you can add to your journal and help you document. So these could be things like tickets from a concert or a show, a boarding pass from a trip, a receipt from a restaurant you ate at, really just anything to, again, help you document life and make your journal more visual. I also like to incorporate my own photos into my journal, and there's a few different ways that I get the images to do that. So if you follow me on Instagram, you know that I like to take photos with a disposable camera. So a lot of times I'll take 2 images of the same thing, so I can have one to keep and one to cut up to put into my journal. I also use this Fujifilm camera. It's called the Instax Mini LiPlay, and you can actually print photos from your phone directly from this camera, and it prints it out as a little mini Polaroid. I also just got this Ivy printer from Canon for Christmas. With this, you can also print images directly from your phone. While the Fuji camera is great to print Polaroids, I don't always want a Polaroid, so this is a great way to print an image that's more flat and almost like a sticker actually. So those are all the supplies that you'll need. Once you're ready to start journaling, the first thing you're going to want to do is think about a theme. Of course, you can journal as much as you want. Typically, I would say I journal about 1 to 3 times per month. I always journal at the beginning of the year to write out my goals. I do an end of the year recap. This last year, I also did a recap every month, just documenting all the places I ate, books I read, shows I saw, all different things like that. I also listed out goals for the next month. I journaled every time I took a trip this year. And then I also just do spreads, if there's something that I want to write about, something I want to get off my chest. So once you have your theme in mind, you'll want to gather items that go along with that theme. So I'm going to be making a spread to recap the month of December. So these are a few items that I gathered for that. I have an old book page. I have a red envelope, a blank postcard. I have this plaid card, kind of Christmassy vibes. This was actually a envelope from a gift card from J. Crew, so I'm going to use the blank side. I have a Polaroid from me on my birthday because that was in December. I have this vintage photo of gifts under a Christmas tree. I think the photo must be from the 60s because one of the gifts under the tree is the Elvis Christmas album. And then I also have a few receipts from places I went in December. So once I have all my items, I'll lay things out just to get a preliminary idea of where I want to place things before I start gluing it down. Once I kind of like the layout, then I will start gluing. And once everything's glued down, just start writing. So yeah, that is how I junk journal. I hope this video was helpful. Again, there's no right or wrong way to junk journal. Thanks so much for watching and happy journaling. Bye.